Hello everybody, welcome to another game on our rapid speed run with the white pieces against Twanin, a 1600 rated player. Let's see how this goes. So we face the Caro Kann. So what do you have in store against the Caro Kann? Do you have a line? What's in your repertoire? We play the advanced variation and he brings his bishop out. We play this aggressive h4 move, neglecting development. So risky in one way. The idea is to limit his bishop and potentially trap it while gaining space on the side of the board that we plan on attacking in the future. So he's a 1600 who's pausing here. Now, okay, he plays h5, which is probably the most principled move. And although bishop d3 is maybe theory, I'm going to go bishop g5, which pins the pawn to the queen. They almost always go queen b6 because this looks like a juicy response, unpinning the pawn with a threat and the developing move. It looks like, you know, such a strong move. You would love to play that as black. It almost looks like, hey, I have an advantage. But here he's thinking, I mean, it seems kind of natural. It's not really, because you want to play e6, you're like, oh, I can, it's pinned. Let me just move my queen. Queen c7, I mean, doesn't really make sense. Yeah, so there we go. Queen b6. Okay. Now here's the fun of this. He's hitting this, threatening the rook. He's pressuring this. Our bishop's aiming, in space, but we don't care. We're gonna continue developing. Bishop d3. We're now threatening his bishop, which is hanging, which is important because if he goes for a rook, I'll just take the bishop. Okay, so he trades. So we take the bishop, and he takes the pawn, saying, "Hey, I'm gonna win a rook." But he doesn't do that. He just goes e6. Almost seems like a waste of a pawn for him, but should be easier for us that he played like this. He played e6, which means we can never play e6. Which means I kind of want to develop. So if I develop my knight and he takes this pawn, I go rook b1. Yeah, no, that has to be good for me. But if I go knight here, he's going to pin it. I'll just replace it, I guess. Okay, so notice I'm hanging a b pawn. You've seen this. Instead, he goes for the pin. A lower rated player would definitely have taken the pawn. But I think I have the response ready, which is just reinforced with the secondary knight. He now develops his knight. This can only support c5 and f6, which is what he should do at some point. I want to unpin my knight, so castling makes a lot of sense. And now we just have, instead of a Caro Kann, it looks like a French without c5, although he doesn't have the light square bishop, so it's a Caro Kann. He goes back voluntarily, so it's not an active square for the queen. He must be trying to queenside expand. He was getting out of the way of his b pawn, would be my guess. Okay. I'm going to question his bishop. Is he going to give up his only bishop, his good bishop? Or will he retreat? He retreats. f4 is interesting, but maybe... Can he like run away and try to trap it at some point? That would be funny. I don't feel like calculating that, so... What else do we have? More normal. I mean, f4, f5 is an idea anyway. And f4, if he runs, you can retreat your bishop as well. So maybe, yeah, f4, just launch it. Here, f5. And then if he tries to trap it, you could move it, I guess. And then your center, also like here, here. I mean, he's undeveloping, so that can't be good. Okay, this almost hangs a bishop, but he has a knight. I don't want to help his knight get to f5, right? Which I just made a really good square with my f-pawn push. Um, so let's not do that. He castles long, okay? But whatever, I'm still going to open up this side, even though that's not where his king is. He takes the bishop, forcing h takes, which gives his rook and pawn a little scope. So maybe I can plant a knight there or a piece there. He then takes my f-pawn, which lets my queen and rook combine. So although it may look weird, I do have this g-pawn covering the g-file. He moves his knight, attacks my queen. If I scoop a pawn, he'll rook it. No, this hits too many things. So I win a pawn with lots of threats. And although his king's not here, I can still collapse his position and you still have nothing to do as black. You know, it's not like he can pawn storm this way because my king's not there. I mean, he can, but my king's not there. And he doesn't have time because I'm just way faster. I'm already there. I'm in. My pawn storm already did its job. The purpose of the pawn storm is to open the lines. I already have open lines, so I don't need to do any more pawn stuff. And normally he'd want to put a rook here, but you hang stuff. So that wasn't the right move. Going back. He should have defended a different way. Maybe move this knight somewhere. Queen defense. I don't know. Because now this pawn hangs and the rook is trapped. So how does that make sense? And now I can infiltrate with the rook and double this way. So it's devastation. So you see how it was like, it looked like a solid game. Things are going well for black. Equality looking. And then it's like an invasive species that comes in your territory. And he just collapses, you know, crazily. It's not like tiny advantage. It just goes into, you're just losing right away. Now he's thinking because, okay, you want to connect the rooks and move the knight, but everywhere you move it hangs the knight. The only way to defend the rook would be to go here, which hangs it. So instead he chooses to hang the knight. And now when I take and he puts a rook here, my king still has that extra g-pawn. But we are up a lot of material. We don't necessarily have to take the knight. Although it seems a bit foolish not to. So let's take it, because that's also a potential queen. He's definitely going to put a rook here, the other one. So we have to move our queen. I don't want to block this from my rook, because I want to infiltrate still. So I'm going to go here. That way I still can do this. Pin the knight, because otherwise checkmate. He spent an entire turn with the king, which gives me exactly what I want. Now his knight is pinned because of the queen. So he can't move the knight. Queen has to defend the knight. This rook can't move. It can take the pawn. Maybe that's his best move. Then you have crazy moves. I mean, okay. Currently the knight's hanging. So I'm going to take that. But there's also good moves like this. He moved his king, which undefended the knight. So the move I was going to make before now comes with a threat. Hanging knight, whereas it didn't. Okay, he moves the queen, but the knight's hanging. This offers the queen trade, which secures the game. Otherwise, checkmate. What? Queen here? That doesn't work. Okay, so he sacks his rook, but there's nothing. Obviously, this can't work. I just stopped a second to make sure all the lines are closed. Might as well move the knight, whatever. Doesn't make a difference. You could have moved your king, the knight, the rook. It would have been up to you. They're all winning. He now trades, and you're up an entire army. So this is funny because it looks like black wins the knight, but can you find a really cool move for white here? Give you 3 seconds. Okay, the really cool move is rook to g7, disconnecting so that when he takes the knight, you take the rook. And if he takes the rook, you're going to get a queen, so who cares about the knight? That's really funny. And even if he took the knight, you'd still be up 9 points of material, so. He's like, oh shoot. Okay, so we have a nice 25 move game with the white pieces in the Caro Kann. Now, there's many different ways to play the Caro Kann. We choose the advanced variation. Whenever you choose the advance in any opening, you have to understand that you're making a pawn move when you could have been developing a piece. So instead of this move, I could have developed my knight, right? That's the drawback of my move. However, the drawback of the knight move is that your opponent then has the option of taking the pawn you did not move, thus removing the space that that pawn was controlling. And now when I push, he doesn't have that option. So these squares, well, when you push, you release control. But how am I trying to say this? If he takes, that pawn disappears forever. And so when there's no pawn on the e file, all of the diagonals like that it would normally control when you move it up the board are missing. You can't control them. But when you push it, you still have this pawn. So you have these, you have future potential. These, and because there's a pawn, like if there's no pawn here or here, the whole center is free for his pieces. But now he can't put a piece on d5 because his pawn's there. It's not realistic for him to put a piece on e4 even though my pawn is passed, because it'll be behind my pawn chain and easy to attack. He also can't put a piece on e5 or f6 or d6. So yeah, I can't develop a piece right away, but I am taking away lots of squares that he's just not going to be able to use. And you know he's going to push e6, so that's another square he's not going to be able to use. And you can see how the whole center gets kind of clogged. The only two available squares in this little box that I made would be f5 and f4 for the players. But I'm the one with the space on this side, not him. So even if he does get a piece here, there's g4, right? Because this is my side of the board. So we choose the advanced variation. Another nuance is, as opposed to the French, when you play the advance, because it takes a turn, your opponent can strike your center quickly and kind of collapse it, which is what the French does with c5. But because he played c6, he would have to spend another turn. So it's like you have a little leeway. Anyway, that was a huge tangent. Don't know where that came from. He goes down the main line. And again, we play h4, which is not a developing move. So you have to know your theory if you're going to do all pawn moves like this. You have to know what you're doing. Otherwise, it's much better to just develop your knight, develop your bishop, and get your pieces out as fast as possible in castle. But I happen to know some ideas. Okay, now we play this move. It's not the absolute main move in the position, but it is the absolute trickiest move in the position, because the most natural move by black is queen b6. And then we do this weird move, bishop d3, and already they can take a central pawn. They can take this. It looks like it should be almost winning for black in a weird way, but all the tactics work out in a crazy way for white. Like, even a grandmaster wouldn't be able to figure this out over the board. It's something you either know or don't know. And but he didn't do it, because I went here instead of going for queen b2, which is what most players do. He just takes the bishop, which is pretty sensible. We take back at the queen. He still didn't do it, which is impressive. Okay. So he just plays a more normal move. He's trying not to fall into any of my tricks. Or maybe he knows something about this line. He knows he shouldn't take. I don't know. So now we just develop a knight. We try to get him. We've been trying to get him to take this pawn for multiple moves, but he refuses. So he goes with a normal pin. And now white just has a slightly better position. A little extra space in the center. Easy development. Castles. You can bring the knight back and go c3. I mean, it's very pleasant for white. We just develop towards the center. King safety. You see, moves like this from b6 to c7, they give you just like extra turns to do what you want. Because this is, can't really be an effective move, especially if you don't move the B pawn. Because then, like, why'd you do that? If you're. But anyway, we just put the question to the bishop because we're happy to have the only bishop on the board, but he retreats. We play f4 because it opens scope for our rook. Our pawn chain's pointing that way. We're clearly trying to get it in. He castles long, trying to say, hey, I'm saved from the danger. And in a way that's true. I'm not going to checkmate him, but will I have a big advantage on this side of the board? Let's find out. I push, and they don't like the trade that he made, bishop takes bishop, which I think a lot of you would naturally do anyway because your bishop has no squares. And it looks like I'm about to push f6, so before anything happens, a lot of you would just take. Engine wants him to play f6, so he gets counterplay on the e5 central square. Let me just look at the lines, curious. So my bishop's attacked. You don't want to really open this up. What if you go bishop f4 just for argument's sake? He takes. If you take with the bishop, he frees his knight. So let's take with the pawn. Although it's hanging, he can free it anyway. Yeah, and this would have been an equal game, assuming everyone plays perfectly. So he moved his king, right? Let me turn off the engine. He's not in threat of getting checkmated. So I play f5. But you can also see that my pawn chain isn't even solidified. I don't have c3 in. So he can get counterplay against the center with this move f6, which is what the engine wants. Now all that will do is open up f and e files, a couple squares, and then we have to fight from there. But if he doesn't do that, it's probably just a lot worse, right? Yeah. Anything else, I'm basically up at least a pawn. So if he wants equality, he has to find f6. f6, f takes e. Let me go down that line. I didn't look at that. He's losing the piece anyway, so he sacks it for this to open up the center. Then he takes your piece. And then when you plant something here, rook over. I mean, I still like the look of this for white. It says it's equal, but what the heck? Equal. I mean, I am kind of loose and exposed, but his pieces are terrible. I guess knight f6 always coming. I guess if he plays accurately, but I'd much rather be white still, just for ease of play. So anyway, he doesn't play that. He takes and automatically goes from even to +2, just lost. For the most natural move, we take back. Now, why is it the most natural? Not only do you free your bishop, which looks kind of trapped, but it looks like you now have an extra resource, which is this pawn with the rook behind it. And I don't really have a knight that can get here anytime soon or anything like that. So it looks like the most natural move, but now you just lose the game, unfortunately, because you lost the f6 opportunity since I have an additional pawn covering that square, so it's not as strong. So he takes, and now our queen and rook battery is strong. We win material, 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 force move, free improving move, +7, game over. So the critical moment is here. You have to recognize my plan. You have to somehow try to stop it as black. f6, or sometimes the idea would be f5, trying to clog up the file. And then I would have to trade bishops and then go g3 to solidify the king side, and then alter my play over here by moving my knight somewhere and pushing for c4, or more likely go c3 and go push the b and a pawns up like that in minority attack style. But anyway, neither here nor there. I didn't even check. Okay, yeah, not even one inaccuracy. That's awesome. 97% accuracy. Although if he played f6 when he was supposed to, I guarantee I would have made inaccuracies, because that was tactically and strategically complicated for me. But that's chess for you. Good luck in your chess. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.